You clicked on this video because of the title, so let's not waste any time. Today we're counting down the 10 fastest American sports cars of the 1990s, ranked by their top speed. If you're ready, let's get started. Number 10, 1996 Chevrolet Corvette Grand Sport. The 1996 Grand Sport was the C4 Corvette's farewell, and Chevrolet made sure it went out swinging. Admiral blue paint, white racing stripe, red hash marks on the left fender. Only 1,000 built. The LT4 engine pushed 330 horsepower and made this the sharpest, most capable C4 ever assembled. But the top speed was never the point. This car was a victory lap. 13 years of fighting to keep the Corvette alive, through accountants who wanted to kill it, through an era that punished performance. And here was the send-off it deserved. Some cars you remember for what they could do. The Grand Sport you remember for what it meant. Number 9, 1995 Ford Mustang SVT Cobra R. Only 250 of these were built, and Ford wouldn't sell you one unless you had a valid competition license. That's not marketing, that's a filter. Ford's special vehicle team built the 1995 Cobra R specifically for the racetrack, stripped out the air conditioning, the radio, the rear seat, the spare tire, and anything else that weighed more than it needed to. What was left was a 300 horsepower, 5.8-liter V8 and a Mustang body that weighed significantly less than a standard GT. Top speed, 170 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. For a naturally aspirated pushrod V8, those numbers were remarkable. And on a road course, the Cobra R was capable of embarrassing cars with far more power because the chassis was so well sorted. Only licensed competitors could purchase one new. Dealers reported that many buyers had licenses solely for the purpose of qualifying to buy this car. That's how much it meant in 1995. Today, a clean Cobra R is one of the most collectible Mustangs ever produced, and the 250 people who got one knew exactly what they had. Number 8, 1998 Chevrolet Camaro Z28 SS. There has always been a war between the Camaro and the Mustang, always. And in 1998, the Camaro was winning. The Z28 SS, the SS package added by SLP Engineering, took the same LS 1V8 that was living in Corvettes and Trans Ams, bolted on a cold air intake and a more aggressive tune, and produced 320 horsepower in a car that started under $30,000. Top speed, 171 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in an even 5 seconds. The Camaro's 4th generation body was long, low, and aggressive in a way that the contemporary Mustang simply wasn't. The interior was cramped and the rear visibility was terrible, and none of the buyers cared even slightly, because this car wasn't about practicality. It was about that hood, that engine note, and the way it sat at a stoplight like it was daring the Mustang in the next lane to do something about it. The Z28 SS represents the peak of the F-body era. GM would kill the Camaro entirely in 2002. When it came back in 2010, a whole generation of enthusiasts remembered exactly what the SS badge used to mean. Number 7, 1998 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am WS6. By 1998, Pontiac's engineers had a secret, and that secret was the LS1. When the C5 Corvette launched with its new small block, Pontiac quietly arranged to have the same engine dropped into the Trans Am's engine bay. The WS6 performance package added a Ram air induction system, upgraded suspension, wider tires, and a tuned exhaust, and the whole package made 320 horsepower in a car that cost about half what a Corvette did. Top speed, 173 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. Magazine testers were stunned, not because the numbers were better than the Corvettes, but because they were so close. A Pontiac Trans Am for $28,000 was keeping pace with cars that cost twice as much and carried twice the prestige. The WS6 Trans Am is one of the great value performance stories of the decade. It was also one of the last truly fast Pontiacs ever built. The brand would limp through the 2000s before being discontinued entirely. But in 1998, for one shining season, the Trans Am was the best deal in American performance. Full stop. Number 6, 1997 Chevrolet Corvette C5. The C4 Corvette had carried the flag for 13 years. By 1996, it was tired, and Chevrolet knew it. The 1997 C5 was a complete reinvention. New platform, new engine, new transmission, new everything. The LS1 V8 was one of the most significant American engine designs in decades. A 5.7-liter small block that made 345 horsepower while getting better fuel economy than the car it replaced. The 6-speed manual was now mounted at the rear axle for better weight distribution. The interior was actually pleasant to sit in. For the first time in years, the Corvette felt like it had been designed in the present tense. Top speed, 175 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. At a base price of around $37,000, it was one of the most extraordinary performance values in the world. Car and Driver said it out-handled the Acura NSX. Road and Track put it alongside Ferraris that cost 3 times as much. The C5 didn't just save the Corvette's reputation, it launched the platform that would eventually become the most capable production Corvette ever built. Everything good that's happened to the Corvette since 1997 started right here. Number 5. 1992 Dodge Viper RT10. Before the GTS, there was this, and this was something else entirely. The Viper RT10 arrived in 1992 like a fist through a wall. No roof, no side windows, no exterior door handles. You reached inside to open it, side pipes that exited right beneath the door sill and would cheerfully brand your calf if you stepped out wrong. This car did not pretend to be civilized. It didn't want to be. That 8.0-liter V10 was co-developed with Lamborghini. Yes, really, and made 400 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque in an era when 300 horsepower was considered aggressive. Top speed was 165 miles per hour in early testing, eventually stretching to 180 as tuning matured. 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds in a car with no traction control, no stability control, and a 6-speed that required your complete attention at all times. When the Viper appeared on the cover of every magazine in 1992, it felt like Detroit had finally stopped apologizing. Here was an American car that scared people. That was the whole point, and it worked. Number 4. 1998 Callaway C8 Corvette. Reeves Callaway was an art major who became one of the greatest performance engineers in American history. That's not a detail. That's the whole story of this car. Callaway had been modifying Corvettes since the mid-1980s, and by 1998 his C8 package represented the pinnacle of what a tuner could legally do to a production sports car. He took the base C5 Corvette's 5.7-liter LS1, bolted on 2 turbochargers, breathed on every component that touched air or fuel, and produced 440 horsepower in a car that already had one of the best chassis in America. Top speed, 180 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4.6 seconds. The Callaway C8 was GM approved, dealer sold, and came with a full factory warranty on the Corvette portion. You were buying a production car with a tuner's soul, backed by a manufacturer's handshake. What Callaway understood was that the Corvette's bones were already extraordinary. You didn't need to replace them, you just needed to show people what they were actually capable of. The C8 made that argument better than anything else available for the money. Number 3. 1990 Chevrolet Corvette ZR-1. In 1990, Car and Driver called this car the Corvette from hell. They meant it as a compliment. The ZR-1 was Chevrolet's response to a very specific problem. The standard Corvette was fast, but the Europeans weren't scared of it. The Ferrari Testarossa, the Porsche 911 Turbo, the Lamborghini Countach. These were the cars that set the global conversation about what fast really meant. Chevrolet decided that conversation needed an American voice. They went to Lotus, which General Motors had recently acquired, and together they designed the LT5, a 5.7-liter V8 with 4 camshafts, 32 valves, and an engineering sophistication that American V8s simply hadn't attempted before. 375 horsepower in 1990, a top speed of 180 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. The ZR-1 didn't just keep up with Europe, it beat it. Nicknamed King of the Hill, the ZR-1 ran from 1990 to 1995 and remained one of the fastest production cars on the planet for its entire run. America had a genuine supercar, and it had a bow tie on the hood. Number 2. 1996 Dodge Viper GTS. Here's what it felt like to buy a 1996 Dodge Viper GTS. You walked into the dealership, you signed the paperwork, and then a salesman handed you the keys with a look that said, "Good luck." And I mean that sincerely. The GTS was everything the original Viper RT10 had been, plus a roof and side windows, which sounds like a small upgrade until you realize that driving the original with no weather protection at 160 miles per hour was less of a driving experience and more of a survival situation situation. The GTS fixed that. It kept the 8.0-liter V10, pushed it to 450 horsepower and 490 pound-feet of torque, and gave you a proper coupe body with those iconic twin white stripes down the center. 185 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds flat. The GTS made Car and Driver's 10 best list the moment it came out. It was America's answer to the Ferrari 355, except louder, cheaper, and twice as likely to kill you if you weren't paying attention. Europeans laughed at it, Americans bought every single one. Number 1, 1996 Vector M12. Most people have never heard of this car. That's a crime. Vector was a tiny California company run by a man named Jerry Wiegert, who spent most of his career trying to prove that America could build a supercar that would embarrass the Europeans on their own terms. The M12 was his second attempt, and it was built on a Lamborghini Diablo platform after a corporate takeover handed him that hardware. What Wiegert did with it was slap a twin turbocharged 5.7-liter V8 under that exotic body and send 492 horsepower to the rear wheels. Top speed, 189 miles per hour, 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds. In 1996, that put it ahead of almost everything money could buy. The interior looked like a fighter jet. The exterior looked like something that landed rather than drove. Only 14 were ever built, which means most people saw one exactly once at an auto show and spent the rest of the decade trying to describe it to people who didn't believe them. The M12 is proof that American ambition, when it really gets going, doesn't need anyone's permission.